Hello?
All right. Hey, Dan, we're back after about a week hiatus, just in between season 4 and the rest of this channel. We're just going to talk about our thoughts on season 5. We have some pitches overall about what we want to see. We have a full cast, all that jazz. But right before we start, we'd like to just talk about actors that we really love, but we couldn't cast just because like they're either on the cusp of being great or they've been great for 5 years, as in like they're in blockbusters and they're like one of the biggest actors out there, and like something like Fargo they wouldn't have time to do. But do you want to start, Dan?
Yeah, a lot of people, they like to go sit in a park and do people watching, but you and I, we like to watch movies and do like side actor watching. We're always looking for actors that are just like 5th or 6th lead that we think might blow up. So this is like one of my favorite exercises, is just dream casting those types of actors into bigger roles. But some of those actors, they get snatched up really quickly because a lot of other people have the same mentality. They're always looking for stars in the wings. One actor that we were just talking about off mic, Jonathan Majors, who you'll know from The Last Black Man in San Francisco. You'll know him from the upcoming Marvel movies. He's going to be one of the...
Lovecraft Country, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Lovecraft Country. He's been in and he was also in The Five Bloods.
He's so good.
The first time I saw him was in The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and he popped so quickly. As soon as I saw him, I was like, that guy's going to be huge, because he's just doing things that are different than so many other actors. And sure enough, he blew up immediately. So as much as I'd like to cast him as my lead character, I can't. Someone
I think we both really love, but he's on his own path kind of always, and there's no way you could get him for a Fargo season. I think Shia LaBeouf would be really fun in a Fargo season, but again, he's doing like Honey Boy, Peanut Butter Falcon, like he's doing these indie movies that he really has attachment to, and I don't want to stop that from him. Not like we could get him, but like, just fan casting wise.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a very interesting figure just in general, so would love to have him on Fargo, but I did not cast him.
Yeah, guys like Shia LaBeouf, you don't want to get in the way of whatever path they're going down, like you said. Another guy that's kind of like that, an actor that I really love and would love to see in everything, is Jon Bernthal. But Jon Bernthal also, I think, is just a little bit too big for Fargo. I think he doesn't quite fit as like the main character in Fargo, and with a lot of these actors, if you convince them to do it, it would be because they'd be like the main character of the season. But a lot of these actors don't quite fit maybe an archetype of a Fargo character. But Jon Bernthal is a guy who like 10 years ago could have played the out of town character or one of the Hitmen.
Totally.
And he's an actor who I think is kind of like remarkably underrated. I think he's a really talented actor. So that's a guy that I also wanted to cast. A guy that I think is perfect for Fargo, but I think is too big at this point, is Gleason.
Yeah, no, you're right. I would love to see him do an American accent. I think that's what was really fun with Martin Freeman in season 1. Mm-hmm. And again, Martin Freeman is huge. Like, he's in all the Marvel movies and he's in all the Hobbit movies, and he was in the Hobbit movies when he was on Fargo. Right. But we just kind of wanted to make it more difficult. But continue, yes.
Yes, I mean, I wanted to see him because I think he has he's a guy that fits the Fargo archetype of like a leading character. He has sort of a weird energy and sort of a meekness, and there's like if you think of like the character that he plays in the Star Wars movies, it's a guy who thinks he has more power than he actually has and like gets off on it.
Someone I would want to cast, but again, I think she's way too big. I think Janelle Monáe would be a lot of fun in a Fargo season, but I feel like she's just been in almost every single thing lately, and with her music career going off and stuff, it just seems like she is a little bit too big of a name. And again, Chris Rock's a huge name, and Jessie Buckley's about to be a huge name. But as we say, overall, there's a bunch of other actors. Like Adam Driver is one for me that I want to put in everything, but he is literally the biggest actor right now. Like he was on John Oliver even. Weird. Was a weird bit. But anyways, just to say, there are thousands and hundreds of actors out there that we love so much, and we could only pick like 7 to 10 for our cast. But yeah, we can probably just jump into this now. So how should we do this? Should we read our cast first and then discuss it, or should we read each one of our like types? Because we have 5 types that are in every Fargo season.
Yeah, I think
we should say odd Fargo season.
Yeah, I think we should discuss the types of characters that we're going for, the way that we broke it down. I kind of deviated a little bit from the way that we broke it down, but I can still fit all of my people into the breakdowns that we have. So we could start there.
Same here. Yeah. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish categories, and then a 6th. I put a 6th one just for like random cast members that don't fit into the category. But we have the good, which is your Molly Solverson, your Ethel Ritas out there. Then we have your wild card, which is Hansi, Lorne Malvo, Mike Milligan in many ways. Then we have our 2 hitmen. We talked about this so much this season, but we talked about duos. You got to have a fun duo in there. I think my duo is super fun, and I'm really excited to hear what you think. A little big, but I think those are my only huge actors. So yeah, you get your Kitchen Brothers, you get your Mimo and
Yuri Gurka, baby.
Name? Yuri Gurka, duh. And Mr. Wrench, Mr. Numbers, of course, Swango and Wrench in season 3 as well. And then this is a funny thing we've noticed from odd seasons of Fargo. So we thought we'd put it in. It's our It's Always Sunny cast member. So in the first season, Glenn Howerton was actually a pretty significant supporting role in it. And then Rob McClane, how do you pronounce his last name? McElhenney is in one episode in season 3. So seeing this is season 5, we got to stick a main It's Always Sunny cast member in there. And then we have our random cast members, just like someone you want to put in there, maybe the first death of the season. We got 6 sections here, and we'll go through all of them and then discuss our overall plots probably at the end. But I think to open up, to hook everyone, we'll just talk about our main cast.
Again, we talk about...
And also,
wait, go for it.
Sorry, I just want to preface this. Daniel and I have not told each other anything about our cast or pitches, and we have a lot of actors we really love, and I have a feeling we're gonna be double casting here. But again, we'll see. So this is the fun of this podcast today.
I'm gonna go on a limb right now and just throw out a name that I think is gonna be double cast for both of us. It's my law enforcement character, and it's Stephen Yoon.
Okay, yeah, Stephen Yoon's in mine also. A different character, but yeah, you can start with talking about your idea of the law enforcement character this season.
Sure. I mean, well, Stephen Yoon is an actor that, the more I think about it, I think he's one of the greatest actors on the planet, and I really do mean that. I think what he did on The Walking Dead was really understated and kind of underrated. There's a lot of stuff going on beneath the surface that you'll see in really good performers. And he's somebody that kind of started in more comedy than he did in drama. And then he shifted more into drama, and now he's in like pretty sweet independent films. And he worked for Bong Joon-ho, and he's in Minari. Yeah. And, he's an actor who is definitely a big actor, but I don't think you could say he's too big to fit into Fargo. I think he's just on the cusp of becoming like a household name, but he's not quite there yet. But he's an actor that can really do anything, and he has, as he did in The Walking Dead, such a moral compass. Like you identify with him because he's kind of an everyman, and you also love him because of his endearing qualities. Like he has a real sensitive touch to him. He's always a character that you look at and you think, I like that guy, and I want to see that guy succeed. So he's sort of my good character, the moral compass of the show, which is tough.
And he's law enforcement.
Right, which is tough because when I was thinking about what my plot would be and the characters and the actors and stuff, it's all of the stories that I am interested in telling personally are usually like race related or class related. And so it's tough to have minority actors playing like criminals, for example, because this is a crime story. So that thematically is sort of a thing that you have to wrestle with. And they wrestled with that in season 4, obviously. And then similarly, having the law enforcement characters be purely good is a little bit challenging now because of the way that we talk about policing. So those are some nuances that'll have to be figured out in the plotting of the story. And again, we just sort of have loose ideas and general pitches for our story. So that's something that'll have to get worked out. But Steven Yeun is my law enforcement character because I think the more you just watch him uncover a crime and retrace steps, you're going to be on his side. You're going to be hoping that he succeeds because he has just, like I said, he's very endearing. Yeah.
And kind of going off that, my moral compass / good characters this season are Steven Yeun.
Great.
Obviously, because he is both our moral compasses just in life, I suppose. But it's Steven Yeun and Zoe Kazan.
Cool.
So she's in The Big Sick. She's actually married to Paul Dano, or at least partners with Paul Dano. Great performer, really good. And they're going to kind of play a husband and wife type character. Like think, Ed and Peggy in a way. But if Ed and Peggy owned a restaurant, and they have like a kind of small fusion restaurant in Iowa. So that's where mine is going to take place this year. And like you were saying, everything about Steven Yeun and like everything about Zoe Kazan, like I'm really thinking of the relationship with Zoe Kazan and Kumail Nanjiani from The Big Sick. It's like very genuine. It's very cute. And a recurring thing in this season is what happens after a story has already been told. In particularly with these two characters, think they had a relationship that started out and it could be its own movie. And now they're at that point in the relationship where it's like no longer a movie. And that's kind of like my reoccurring motif throughout the season. But yeah, I think they're going to have a cute, great relationship in it with some fighting. But I think they're like a good moral center of this season. I named him Will. Will and Mindy. I just like those two names.
Nice.
But yeah, we can move forward. This is probably like I'm super curious who your pick is. This is the wild card character. So again, it's your Jesse Buckley. It's your Billy Bob Thornton. It's going to be the performance that everyone's talking about. And I'll go first with mine,
okay.
Since you went first last time. I think this person is right on the cusp of like breaking out. So like by the time this podcast is posted, she could be already just like blown up. But some of her credits include Black Mirror, The Last Jedi, like huge things, but she plays very bit parts in it. So I think this still counts. And she has a show right now on HBO called I May Destroy You. I read an interview with her and Donald Glover, and she is so interesting, and I think she could really bring a lot to this season. It's Michaela Cole.
Nice.
You might not know the name, but you definitely know the face. You definitely know, like, you've seen her in something. She has such like an intellectual way of like speaking about art and stuff, and it's like that's the type of person I want in a Fargo season, because she's going to add so much to Noah Hawley's writing just in general. And and she has such a face, it's just like like we were talking about with Steven Yeun kind of, but like Michaela Cole's face is like a face like you want to know more about and you want to like get in there. And like her character is going to be kind of like a wild card character similar to Lauren Malvo. She's going to be mostly by herself, and her story comes with like with her interactions with other people, similar to Lauren Malvo. And I think she's going to be a lot of fun. And she's also, again, talking about how stories have ended, she is somewhat bringing back the Fargo Syndicate that Lauren Malvo took out in in like 2010 or whatever. So like she's just part of like this, I want to say like this offshoot of the Fargo syndicate that's like slowly making a comeback in some ways. And yeah, just a lot of fun.
That's a good pick. That's an actor who is very close to becoming huge. I think Academy Awards and Emmy nominations are on the cusp there. So those are the actors that are really fun to get for event television, like Anya Taylor-Joy in The Queen's Gambit, which is a show that we'll be talking about. Not a household name yet, and then she becomes Beth Harmon on The Queen's Gambit, and all of a sudden her career is completely taking off. I think the same thing could be said for Michaela Cole
in my season 5 of Fargo.
Exactly. Yeah.
Come on, Noah Hawley.
Yeah, we're giving Noah Hawley free ideas, so I hope he takes at least one of them. Okay.
But yeah, your wild card character.
So I was thinking about what the wild card character is, and often it's an out-of-towner. It's a character in season 1, Lorne Malvo, an out-of-towner. Season 2, Hansi's a wild card character. He's not technically an out-of-towner, but he's like an out-of-culture character.
Totally.
Then also Mike Milligan is an out-of-towner, and he's an X-Factor. Season 3, David Thewlis playing V.M. Varga is an out-of-towner.
We'll talk all about him on our Fargo season 3 podcast.
Yeah, and then and then season 4, Jessie Buckley has, she's a transplant from Minnesota, so an out-of-towner as well. And again, with the wild card character, you have the liberty of going big. It's kind of like if we're talking draft philosophy, if you don't have a particular need on your football team, you just take the best available player. I think that's kind of the same with wild card. You can just take the actor that you really love, and an actor who I really love, an actor who has been one of my favorite actors for I guess like 6 years now, and has been popping up in more and more stuff, and was most recently in the gave what I think is going to be an Emmy-winning performance in the special episode of Euphoria that just came out. It's Colman Domingo. Colman Domingo is one of the great voices. Like he has a like when you think of great voices in cinema and television, it's like I put him up there with Orson Welles. Like just great vocal ability. He is so special in this most recent special episode of Euphoria, and it just reminded me of how much I love him. I first got accustomed to seeing him as Victor Strand on Fear the Walking Dead, and immediately I was like, "You're too good for this TV show. I hope somebody starts casting you in things." And then I started listening to podcasts that he was doing interviews on, and he is just such a brilliant and thoughtful person. Similar to like your pick with Michaela Cole, it's just somebody that speaks intelligently about art and culture. And I didn't really. I'll just give the sort of a brief idea of like what my story is before we finish out the characters and then talk about the story in more depth. But roughly, my story is about a local political race, a botched assassination attempt, and then the wildcard character he works for one of the mayoral candidates, and he ends up flipping sides, and then the wildcard character basically takes over the operation. So Colman Domingo starts off as sort of like a right-hand man to a candidate who's running for mayor. And then very quickly he's tasked with going and finding the so-called assassins or the attempted assassins. And then he switches sides and he's like, "You're doing it wrong. Like you shouldn't be trying to kill this guy. You should be draining him of every drop of blood that he has because he screwed you guys over. And so like, this is how we're going to win." So he basically comes in about halfway through the season and takes over the operations.
Right.
And I think Colman Domingo offers so much to a role like that because he is vastly more intelligent than most Fargo characters. And you can buy him coming in and just being like, no, that's not how this is going down. Like, this is how it's going down.
Yeah, that's really like a VM Varga mixed with like just the upfrontness of Lorne Malvo. But no, you've been talking about Colman Domingo like ever since season 1 of Fear the Walking Dead. Yeah. And I do occasionally just look up his scenes, and he is great in that show. Since you said you're law enforcement, kind of, I assume you probably have one more or something.
I got a lot more characters. That's where I sort of deviated, but yeah, I could still fit some people in.
Cool, sounds good. I'll just jump to mine. My law enforcement characters It's two Jimmys that we love a lot.
Oh boy.
It's Jimmy Simpson, famous, Westworld, It's Always Sunny. I kind of cheated. I don't count him as my It's Always Sunny cast member, but you can. And then and Jimmy Fails.
Oh my God, I have both of them.
Jimmy Fails in this.
I have both of them.
I know. I was gonna bet. But yeah, they have they're chief and deputy, and they kind of have a different dynamic. I was thinking they have kind of like a father-son dynamic, or like an uncle-nephew dynamic. I was surprised to figure this out, but Jimmy Fails is only 26, which makes me feel bad. But he's in The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Also, it's based off his life, and it is just such a genuine performance. And like we've been saying about, like, you got to be careful with like law enforcement these days, and how you reflect how you show them in the series. And I think having like a young black man like Jimmy Fails in there is really interesting as a deputy, as someone who wants to make a change, and either he figures out he can't, or something else. I haven't really fully fleshed out his character, but I knew, by the way, Stephen Yoon and Jimmy Simpson and Jimmy Fails would all be in yours too.
Yep.
I was thinking that those are like the three actors we talk about the most. And I mean, we wanted Jimmy Simpson in Rise of Skywalker as like a Knight of Ren or something like that. But yeah, and Jimmy Simpson, I think he really sinks his teeth into anything he does, whether it's like, a hacker on House of Cards, if it's a young Ed Harris on Westworld, or if it's a gross, sweaty man in a robe drinking milk in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He always brings it, and I think their dynamic would be really interesting, and I love how both of their names are Jimmy. I think it's kind of fun. Apologies, though.
Well,
but it's really interesting to see how different we envision them playing characters in our pitches.
Yeah, that's what's fun is, so you have them as the law enforcement. Since we're talking about them, I'll just segue into my next category. I have them as the duo, the Hitmen. Jimmy is the quiet one, and well, they're both Jimmy. So Jimmy Fails is the quiet one, and Jimmy Simpson is the talkative one. I think either way you go, it's a win. It's a W.
Wait, okay, so we both have them as duos, pretty much. That's incredible.
Again, we did not go over this beforehand. This is incredible. Jimmy Simpson is one of those actors who is just secretly one of the best on the planet. I don't think he quite has the same range as like Stephen Yoon, but when he gets a hold of something like he did in Westworld season 1, he's unstoppable. He can do a lot of really, really incredible work. He's another actor who I was like, okay, do I make him the cop, or do I make him the hitman, or do I make him one of the dumb Fargo main characters, or do I make him the wild card? I was like throwing him around in every single feasible possibility, because he has a rugged handsomeness that is sort of in line with a lot of Hollywood stars, but also he isn't that also. Like, you know what I mean? He's like simultaneously on the verge of being like completely gorgeous and kind of gross. It just depends on the makeup and the costume, I guess.
He is super sexy in Westworld. I was shocked.
Exactly. That's what's amazing. So he could fit into a lot of different roles. He's obviously, just as an actor, a tremendous actor. He's again, something that's really important for me is an actor who is versed in comedy as well as drama, because that's really important just in my philosophy for acting, but also for Fargo specifically. I think if you're going to do Fargo, you have to pull off the comedy of Fargo, and that's a very specific type of comedy that not every actor can do, but I think Jimmy Simpson can pull that off. Now, switching over to Jimmy Fails, I was like, okay, I want him in this. Who do I put him in here as? And I was going to make him one of my main characters, like one of the Ed and Peggy type characters. But then I realized, wait, no, he's like perfect as the quiet hitman. Like he doesn't have to speak that much. Like Last Black Man in San Francisco, he doesn't have to talk that much, and you're just watching him. You're looking at his eyes. You're looking behind his eyes. You're looking into his soul, and he doesn't have to say all that much. And
Yeah.
And spoilers, but Jimmy Simpson is the one who dies. So Jimmy Fails is the one who...
Okay, he survives.
Because that's how it has to be,
that's
right?
Cool. Yeah, one has to die and the other survives. Maybe they meet up with Wrench later on.
Yeah, our season 6 pitch is just going to be all of the side characters.
Coming together. Old Mike Milligan. Yeah. Got him. Mr. Wrench. Got him. But yeah, and just so we get this before I go into my duos, law enforcement, are there any more other than Stephen Yoon?
Yeah, this is a bit of a deep cut. It's Stephen Yoon, and his partner is Martin Wallstrom. He's an actor who you probably don't know. He is, I think, most famous for playing Tyrell Wellick in Mr. Robot, which is a sociopathic monster tech guy, like chief financial officer of a company. So he has a real intensity about him that I love. But when I watch him in interviews, he seems like a really light and gregarious guy. And he seems like somebody who has the authoritative acting quality of a police officer or a law enforcement character. When you're going to cast Fargo, you should look first at British actors and Swedish actors, because they just look like white people from the Northeast, you know? And so Martin Wallstrom is a Swedish actor, or Swedish American actor. And and he just has that sort of look. He just looks like a guy that would live up in like Minnesota or somewhere on the East Coast. And I think he could pull off the accent too.
Totally.
So yeah, that's an actor that I really love, and somebody that I just really wanted to put in here. It's a sort of smaller role, but an important role.
Okay, so my duo / hitman, kind of, I kind of cheat with it. I'll tell you with my story later. But okay, this is a duo that I randomly came up with, and I was like, there's no way they haven't been in something together. They are pretty big, and like I think it's a little I don't know. It might be a bit too much, but I think you market the season around these two. They were actually targeting, in like 10 years ago in 2010, they were thinking of making a Men in Black reboot with these people, but then nothing came to it. So yeah. And I think one of them was in Legion, so I think you could definitely get one of them. The other one might be too big, but he's great. My duo is Jermaine Clement and Sasha Baron Cohen.
That's pretty great.
Which I think their comedy styles are pretty similar, and I think they'd have a lot of fun together. And in their older age, like I'm having them play two professors at a local university, so not exactly hitmen, but I think they count as the duo. But yeah, I mean, again, Sasha Baron Cohen kind of hot right now just because he's been in Borat 2 and all this stuff. But, you know, he's going to go under the radar again pretty soon. And I think you really market the Fargo season around Sasha Baron Cohen, like they did with Chris Rock this season. Like Chris Rock was in the main character, but like all of the marketing was like Chris Rock is in this season. And that's like the biggest thing. But yeah, a fun duo, and I think they're just large. They're really tall people, so I think they can be really intimidating too. So yeah, just my duo.
I love both of those actors. I've been watching What We Do in the Shadows, the TV series. We both love the movie, and the show is awesome. But I hate to spoil it, but there is a little cameo from Jermaine Clement. It just reminded me of how fun Jermaine Clement is. He's really good in Legion, and he's really fun vocally in Moana, even though it's just a small part. He's very fun in all the Flight of the Conchords stuff that he did, and everything he's in. He's just a totally fun character. He also feels like a character that could be in the Fargo or the Coen Brothers universe. I'm thinking of like the guy who plays the professor in A Serious Man.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Similar voice and accent even.
Yeah.
But
I actually think when I first watched it, I was like, is that? And I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah. But no, that's a great pick. And then Sacha Baron Cohen, that's a tough get because he is probably going to be nominated for an Oscar this year, even though he really shouldn't be because Trial of the Chicago 7 wasn't terrific. But he's a great actor, so I'm happy he's getting recognition. I think if he has like juicy scenes, if he has some meaty scenes and then maybe dies off halfway through the season, you could convince him to come in.
Yeah, I think so too.
But again, we're dreamcasting this, so this is fun. And I love Sasha Baron Cohen, so welcome to Fargo.
And I will say, I prefaced it a bunch. Sasha Baron Cohen is the biggest actor in my thing, obviously. And I was like, should I? I'm like, fuck it, why not? Again, it's going to be a different thing for him too. And I really think they both have a comedy to them that is also deathly serious sometimes. Like they can really go hardcore into either way. And I think Jermaine Clement's performance in Legion is a perfect example of that. It's like scary, but also really funny. And I cast him as Professor, so I'm like super looking forward to like, they're going to have a lot of scenes together. They're going to be in nice suits and stuff. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And they both have incredible intelligence. So that's perfect for Professor.
Yeah. And all right. So this is right before we go on to like a couple other random characters. We have our It's Always Sunny character.
So I cheated and I went with Jimmy Simpson. So that is my Always Sunny in Philadelphia character. But I think we could have a little cameo from Dee, a little D? Olsen cameo. You
put her in there. Mine is I've seen this guy do serious acting, and it's not the best, but I just love him so much, and I think I'm going to put him in a fun enough role. I'm going with Charlie Day. Again, he's like bigger. He was in those Pacific Rim movies and stuff, and he did this and that. Almost went with Danny DeVito, but I think I think that would be too much. Charlie Day is going to be the owner of a nightclub that is right across the street from Stephen Yoon and Zoe Kazan's diner type thing. So he'll have a little fun thing. And then besides that, my random cast, I'm going with some stand-ups. I wanted just some like comedy. So like maybe Jimmy O Yang makes a cameo.
Nice.
Joe Coy, put him in there. But my main get, and I think this is the only actor we'll talk about today that we could actually feasibly get in the next 3 years, if things go well for us. It's Patton Oswalt. And I think he really fits perfect in the Fargo universe the more I think about it. And again, a little bigger of an actor, but like bigger for like people like us who watch like a lot of movies and stuff, because he's certainly in a lot. But he's gonna have a fun little part. I'll tell about it later. But any more random castings for you?
Well, first, just on your castings, I think Charlie Day, you're right. He's got to be in the right role, and I think as the coked up nightclub owner, like that's perfect. Yeah. That's absolutely perfect casting. Good job on you.
He'll die like halfway through the season,
right? Yeah. It's just cool to have weirdness like that in Fargo, because Fargo is at its best weird. I gave a brief synopsis of what my idea was. You have your law enforcement. It's Stephen Yoon and Martin Wallstrom. They're on the hunt for the whole thing. Then we have my hitmen who end up trying to assassinate a candidate for mayor. It's Jimmy Simpson and Jimmy Fails. And then my wild card was Coleman Domingo. I have like quite a few more characters. I have 3 sort of main characters, like the Ed and Peggy type characters.
Right.
And then I have the 2 candidates for mayor, which are not really like main characters, but they're big supporting characters. So I'll start with the candidates for mayor. And this is, so Sasha Baron Cohen was your big get. My big get in a small role, similar to how you pitched for Sasha Baron Cohen, is Walton Goggins.
Oh, and he's perfect.
He's running for mayor.
For Fargo. Yeah, that's great.
Walton Goggins, if you haven't seen Vice Principals, he is so electric, like comedically electric, but still always maintains his dramatic ability that you may have come to know in Justified or in any of the movies that he's been in.
Ant-Man 2.
That's right, Ant-Man 2. But what I love about his performance in Vice Principals is he's playing a guy who him and Danny McBride play vice principals in that show. And both of them get off on the small amount of power that they have. And they're really weak men. Like they're really, really deeply weak and flawed men. And they abuse their small amount of power. And it's the point of comedy in Vice Principals. And it's going to be the point of comedy in this one as well. Walton Goggins is I mean, he's a very handsome man, and he's very well spoken. So when he's out in public doing his speeches, he is one kind of person. Behind closed doors, he is a baby. He is a man baby, and he gets super frustrated and super jealous, and so he can turn on the comedy in the behind the scenes sort of thing. So Walton Goggins is one of my mayor candidates.
I mean, let me just talk on that for a moment. I love Walton Goggins, and I love that choice so much. I put him around a bit, but the episode of Community that he's in, I don't know. I don't think you've seen it yet, have you? He is great in season 5 of Community. He again, he does exactly that. He's like super serious throughout the whole thing, and then at the end credits, he has like a funny little bit that just shows like, wow, this guy has such range. And that's a great choice for a politician type character, definitely.
So that's the first candidate for mayor. The other one, and this will tell you a little bit about, what we're kind of loosely basing the politics around. It's Walton Goggins, who's like a man baby, and then Catherine O'Hara as the other candidate. Sort of an older, sort of middle-aged to older Midwestern female character. So Catherine O'Hara is one of the greats to grace the television and film screen. She's been in so many really good comedies, and she was like a huge get at one point in the 90s, I suppose. She was in Home Alone, and then wasn't too big in like the 2000s, but then had this incredible resurgence now with Schitt's Creek, where she plays one of the main characters. And so the train is a-rolling for Catherine O'Hara. Catherine O'Hara has the comedy chops, but also the intelligence that's necessary for this kind of character.
If I may ask, is like, what did his character do before? Was he like a businessman, like entrepreneur, like what kind of thing?
He was a businessman, and he's got skeletons in the closet, and that's why he's going to be, there's an attempted assassination on his life.
Right, because ties into Fargo.
That's right. So those are those two characters. Then real quick, I'll just do, I mean, ironically, these are like my 3 main characters coming up, and I'll do them, I'll give them the least amount of time, but it's a trio. It's a trio, and it's 2 of them are a couple, and then one of them is like really close friends with the other 2, and they all, I think, worked together at like the business that Walton Goggins was running, and they all got kind of screwed over by the Walton Goggins character. Again, very loose plot, but they've all been wronged by Walton Goggins, and they don't want to see him succeed, so they are the ones who decide to hire Jimmy Simpson and Jimmy Fails to assassinate Walton Goggins, and it goes horribly wrong. My trio, basically my main character, my Jesse Plemons of the season, Dan Stevens.
Yeah.
Dan Stevens, he's no stranger. He's no stranger
to Noah Hawley.
You'll know him from Legion. He almost became a huge movie star, I think. He was in Beauty and the Beast, and you could tell that there was like his team was working to make him into like a huge star. And I think a couple of parts probably fell and went to other actors in big movies. And if they had gone to Dan Stevens, then he'd be too big to get for this. But so Dan Stevens is sort of like one of my key main characters. I think he has the weird energy that I was talking about earlier with some of my other actors. His eyes are kind of wild and big, and I think he could do the accent really well. And so I think he'd be a really good sort of lower class guy that's been screwed over by this Walton Goggins character who decides to take things into his own hands. And then he has 2 friends that are really the Ed and Peggy sort of intelligence level, and it's Tim Heidecker and Sarah Goldberg.
Fuck yeah, Tim Heidecker.
Tim Heidecker is secretly an amazing actor. If you've seen him in all of his comedy stuff, Tim and Eric, and On Cinema at the Cinema, you know that he's absolutely hilarious. But his style of comedy is basically non-comedy. It's basically just playing himself, but slipping up on a few words here and there. And it's the subtlety of the comedic performance that is so funny. And then also he's like really good in a small role in Us, the Jordan Peele film. And that's what made me realize, like, oh, he could probably take this to another level. So he's really a dumb idiot in this show, but an endearing dumb idiot. And his girlfriend or wife is Sarah Goldberg, who you'll know from Barry.
Sally, yeah.
She plays Sally in the show.
She's great in that show.
And she also in that series plays a character that is like kind of vain and really more self-interested than she is interested in other people. And it's like a really honest and realistic performance, a good portrayal of an actor of that quality. A lot of people, for whatever reason, dislike her in the show. I think that's just common in any show where there's like a strong female presence. But I think she fits perfectly into this world of Fargo. Those are my main characters.
All right, yeah, let's go on to our short pitches. I think we'll just say like setting, and then just like a brief like summary of like the plot points you want to hit. So yeah, going off that, my pitch is that it takes place in 2018, Des Moines, Iowa. I feel like Iowa doesn't get enough love for Fargo, so you got to throw that in there. And yeah, the whole point of my season is like what happens after a story is complete. Every character in my series, this season, has like already lived their best life. Like they've already done something great. Like Zoe Kazan and Stephen Yoon have made like this wonderful fusion diner in Iowa that's like somewhat successful. But again, it's like with them, it's like they're kind of struggling with like the social media aspects to life, and like we want to get into that. And it's like how do you market restaurants? Like that's going to be like their own little thing. Especially in like a place like Iowa, which like doesn't get a lot of like different culture, I assume. Never been to Iowa, but that is just my assumption. All right, this is basically the inciting incident that's going to tie everything together. So two professors find themselves bored with life, and these two professors are Sasha Baron Cohen and Jermaine Clement. They've both won like numerous awards for like prestigious like things in their field, and they're kind of bored with life, you know. And they have like a favorite restaurant / nightclub. That's the Charlie Day owned nightclub, and then that's the restaurant owned by Stephen Yoon and Zoe Kazan. And one night a stand-up played by Patton Oswalt is like killed. And it is the two professors. And this is kind of based off like the Leopold and Loeb story from like Chicago about like nearly 100 years ago, I think. Just to give some background, these two really intelligent people thought they could get away with a crime, so they murdered a 14-year-old boy. And then obviously they got caught, so they're not that smart. But that's kind of what I want to base this season off of. Like the two professors are bored and they just want to do something interesting with their lives. And they think, oh, like what if we just tried to get away with murder? Or like what if we got away with murder and did it? And for a while they do. It's similar to Lester and whatnot. And then, but Patton Oswalt, who's not playing Patton Oswalt, he's playing like Billy Flamingo or something stupid, like a stupid Iowa comic that's like not that good. But he has ties to a Fargo syndicate, and he was actually like his other job is smuggling some sort of thing into the town. So that's when Michaela Cole comes in and switches things up. And yeah, season's going to be fun. And obviously Jimmy Simpson and Jimmy Fails are the police enforcement, and they'll be in there somehow too. But that's just my vague pitch and my vague idea for this season. Should be a lot of fun. And I think something we talked about that we love so much about season 1 is like everything connects to that first murder. And that's what I want to do with this season as well. That's
a great pitch. I think you got a really good story. I've got some questions now before I jump into mine.
Go for it.
Who do you see yours living and who do you see dying? Who are some guys?
That's a good question. I think, again, Sasha Baron Cohen probably has to die pretty early on, and I think probably halfway through the season, I see Sasha Baron Cohen dying. Probably Jermaine Clement kills him. Or Michaela Cole. Again, we'll see. Either way, like, it has to push the story forward more. It's like they killed Patton Oswalt and they're still kind of like reeling from that. And just something random. I would love them to have like intellectual conversations. Like, I find it so interesting we talked about this in a podcast way before. You're going to laugh, I think, when I say this, but it's kind of that idea from Spider-Man 2 when all these doctors with PhDs are getting murdered by Dr. Octopus. It's like they're so smart, they're so intelligent, like book-wise, but it's like how does that apply to like when you have someone coming after you? You know what I mean? And stuff like that. So yeah, I think Sacha Baron Cohen dies pretty early on, and that kind of like puts Jermaine Clement's character forward more. And you know, think like if Emmett Stussy was more like Lester, think that. So like I'm thinking like a mix between the two with Jermaine Clement's character. And then I think Jimmy Simpson's probably going to bite the bullet too at some point. And that's going to propel Jimmy Fails forward. Zoe Kazan and Stephen Yoon won't die at all. But like I said, Patton Oswalt has like a really funny death or something. Like after the first episode, you go like, oh my God, they really killed Patton Oswalt in like a crazy ass way. And yeah, besides that, maybe Charlie Day also gets it. Again, when I get more characters in here, when Noah Hawley gets us to write this season, we'll definitely put some more deaths in there. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking with that.
So my pitch is really loose in the beginning, which is not what you want. But I think the ideas that I'm really interested in are specifically in how class is portrayed in Fargo, because I think it's always been about the little man. And I think that's one thing that we're kind of missing in season 4. I guess technically Ethel Rita and the Smutney family are the quote unquote little man in the story, but it's...
And Josto's small.
Yeah. But Gaetano's big, and he throws him through a table.
Yo.
Then he pledges his allegiance.
And then trips and shoots himself in the fucking head.
Incredible. But
spoilers for season 4.
I think it's really about the little man. Lester is a little man. Ed and Peggy are the little man. Usually it's characters that feel like they've been wronged in some way, and they take things into their own hands because America is a land of freedom. And part of that freedom is the freedom to do really shitty things, and to take it too far. And so that's sort of the basis of the story here. So Dan Stevens and his friends, Tim Heidecker and Sarah Goldberg, they in some way are connected to Walton Goggins, who is now running for mayor. I think my initial idea of the story was that Walton Goggins let them go because of some BS and something to that extent. That's the loose part of the story. I don't know exactly how he wronged them, but they ended up out of a job. They're lower class already, so they kind of live like shit. And Walton Goggins is this very wealthy guy who's now running for political office, but it's local political office. So therein lies a lot of the comedy also, is just like how small this power is that they're all really intoxicated by. But so Dan Stevens gets this idea in his head that Walton Goggins is better off dead. It's better off if we kill him. And he pitches this idea to Tim Heidecker and Sarah Goldberg, and they're kind of aloof about it, but they're ultimately not on board. They're like, they think it's kind of a goof. They're all drinking at the bar or something, and they're a little bit drunk, and they're like, that's funny, ha ha ha. Dan Stevens, though, is really serious about this. He hires 2 hitmen, who are basically just 2 guys that he knows, just Jimmy Simpson and Jimmy Fails. They're not really good hitmen. They aren't even hitmen. They're just guys. They're just sort of low-class criminal guys. But they assure Dan Stevens that they can get the job done. That's what's happening with Dan Stevens and the hitmen and stuff. So he hires them to assassinate Walton Goggins. Meanwhile, Walton Goggins and Catherine O'Hara are squaring off in a political race for mayor. Walton Goggins has a lot of skeletons in his closet. He has some connections to some shady businesses. I've heard rumors that maybe it's connected to Fargo or like maybe the New York or Kansas City. Who knows exactly? Maybe that'll come in later. But he's got some real shady connections. He's a really shady businessman running for political office. He's a man baby. Catherine O'Hara is really good at jabbing him, like in public when she gives speeches. She says just the right thing to make him really angry. And he throws these like violent little fits and tantrums, and he's always complaining to his guy Coleman Domingo, his aide, his like chief of security or whatever. And he's throwing these little tantrums, and he's getting like really, really angry. That comes into play later, his temper tantrums. Also, meanwhile, you have Stephen Yoon and Martin Wallstrom. They're the police. They're not really doing anything yet because the crime hasn't been committed.
Yeah, just real fast on both our pitches. I think it's funny that we're like, and then there's law enforcement, obviously, who gets involved later.
Yeah, the law enforcement is so secondary in the beginning. It's funny. They really don't get too involved, especially in like season 2. The first like 30, 40 minutes of the episode, Patrick Wilson isn't in. Yeah. But
I mean, season 1 is pretty much the only season that has like the main character is like a law enforcement, like. Yeah, when the chief dies, Molly is most affected.
Exactly. So we come to a political rally. Walton Goggins is there. Catherine O'Hara's there. Jimmy Fails and Jimmy Simpson, in very Fargo ways, attempt to assassinate Walton Goggins, but fail miserably and inadvertently end up killing 2 just random people who are there at the event. And also, I should have said, the setting is sort of... It's northeast. It's a little bit closer to the coast, so we're not quite Fargo accent territory, but it's also not in like New York. You know, it's not metropolitan.
What year is this?
I'm saying it's roughly 2014. So it's a precursor to what comes in 2016. And so inadvertently, Jimmy Simpson, specifically Jimmy Simpson, screws it up, accidentally kills 2 people, and the whole thing goes wrong. So that's the thing that Stephen Yoon has to investigate. The death of these 2 people, tragically, at a political rally. Again, meanwhile, Dan Stevens then meets up with Jimmy Simpson and Jimmy Fails, and he's like, what happened? They tell him that it's gone wrong. They didn't kill Walton Goggins. Everything's gone awry. So now we kind of have like a 5-person group. These 2 hitmen, Dan Stevens, Tim Heidecker, Sarah Goldberg, who all become connected. Dan Stevens involves Tim Heidecker and Sarah Goldberg because kind of guilt trips them and says like, no, you told me it was okay to do this, like when we were out drinking. And they're like, no, that's not true. We didn't say that.
Like we were out drinking.
Exactly. It was just fun and games. We were just talking. So they become implicated and they get brought into the story that way. But so we have this little core group of people. And so in there is a lot of tension. A lot of secrets could come out because it's a large group. With it, when it's just Lester who knows about the murder, it's a little bit easier to keep it a secret. It's tougher when it's 5 people that are involved in an assassination attempt on a political candidate. So that's something that's going on. Meanwhile, Walton Goggins, he tells Coleman Domingo to go try and find whoever tried to assassinate him. He also assumes it was coming from Catherine O'Hara's team because he's such a man baby.
Right.
And so as the season goes along, deaths start happening for the Catherine O'Hara team because of Walton Goggins now. And Coleman Domingo is trying to figure out like who did this, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. He finds Dan Stevens, Tim Heidecker, Sarah Goldberg, Jimmy Simpson, and Jimmy Fails. And he's like, you guys are idiots. You wanted to hurt Walton Goggins because he screwed you over in some way by killing him? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You want to drain him of every dime that he has because that's his blood source.
Right.
So, like, that's how you hurt him. And so then Coleman Domingo takes over the operation, and then they start to move forward in that way. As for the hitmen, I think Jimmy Simpson dies at some point in a silly Fargo way. Not quite sure how. But here's my other big twist on the season. My question was going to be, what is your tilt of this season? What changes everything? I think there's 2, technically. So Coleman Domingo coming in and taking over is the tilt.
Yeah.
That's like the big tilt. That's like, oh, shoot, he switched sides, and now we're now blackmailing this candidate.
Yeah. It's like the end of that episode of Barry where it's like, oh, he has other motivations.
Exactly. So that's like the big tilt.
Just to make it vague.
That's the big tilt. But then all season long, Jimmy Fails like isn't saying that much. He's kind of a quiet guy, and he's not the one that's fucking up. It's Jimmy Simpson that's fucking up. And so when Jimmy Simpson dies, it becomes an opportunity for Jimmy Fails to rise a little bit. But then Coleman Domingo comes in, and Coleman Domingo kind of takes over the operation. So the sort of second tilt is Jimmy Fails killing Coleman Domingo.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy Fails takes over the operation. All the meanwhile, Dan Stevens, Tim Heidecker, and Sarah Goldberg are just like, I don't know what's happening. Like, we're stupid idiots.
Yeah.
So then...
that comp is just like, it's so reminiscent of that scene in the Walking Dead comics where Rick kills I think it's Dexter. He just fucking kills him, and it's like that could be a great scene where Jimmy Fails just kills Coleman Domingo
Exactly.
just out of nowhere, and you're like, oh my god.
Exactly. It just comes out of nowhere. He kills Coleman Domingo in like episode 7, but then Jimmy Fails kills him, and then he sort of takes over, and he kind of becomes the wild card character because now it's like, oh, this guy's kind of a loose cannon. Like he's quiet and violent, which is the scariest type of violent. And so then by the end of the season, everything just goes awry. The political campaign just gets messier and messier because of the connections to Fargo, because of Walton Goggins being a man baby and ending up inadvertently killing people on Catherine O'Hara's team. It all just goes to hell, and a bunch of these characters end up dying. But at the end of the day, Stephen Yoon, who's been hot on the trail, he figures out the crime because that's Fargo, baby.
Yeah, and then he goes to bed.
And then he goes to bed
at the end. That's great. Great pitch overall, Dan. Really, really solid stuff. I think while our cast is similar sometimes, we really, really brought some different ideas, and you can thank us later, Noah Hawley. We gave you the start of it, and if you want to take this, call us first, I guess. We would just love to talk to you, really, but most likely you'll never see this. But any final thoughts on this season? Is there anything you'd like to add that's in every Fargo season? Like maybe a shout out to Sioux Falls? Is there a character that comes back? Is Zombie Man in your season?
Zombie Man is not in my season. We should have figured out like what our mystical element would be, but alas.
I know that's something we completely forgot about, and it's something we always talk about. If we don't have anything else to say, I'll just make some announcements before. So we have the Queen's Gambit review coming out in the next couple weeks, and then we're going to be reviewing Fargo seasons. In this order, we'll be reviewing the rest of Fargo. So we'll be reviewing Fargo Season 2, Fargo the movie, Fargo Season 1, and then Fargo Season 3. We're going to do it in chronological order. And it's going to be fun. Stick around. And I hope you like this video. If you have any season 5 ideas and like casting, please put it down below. We really want this to be a discussion here, and want to hear all your ideas. On my Facebook group, someone put like their cast list, and it was kind of cool to see. I think some of the actors were a little too big. I think they put Sam Rockwell in it and like Peter Dinklage, which like they're great actors, but might be a little too big. But we'll see. Like I love Colin Farrell, and I would put him in a heartbeat, but there's no way he could be in a Fargo season anymore.
Totally agree.
Any last thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, definitely let us know your thoughts. Don't trash our ideas too hard. We're playing around here. But no, I think what's fun about Fargo is it is a really simple formula. And what's kind of amazing is that we've gotten 4 great seasons out of such a simple formula. I think that speaks to the talent of Noah Hawley and the crew that puts it together. It's kind of remarkable, but I think knowing the formula and then doing this as an exercise is a real fun blast. And then I guess just a quick shout out to the game Fiasco, which we've talked about a couple of times, which is basically a role-playing game where like an improv role-playing game where you make up a Cohen Brothers story. So if this exercise is fun to you, definitely get some friends together and try to play that game.
Yeah, can't shout out Fiasco enough. What a great game. But yeah, that's why I feel like this kind of came naturally to us today. It's like, oh yeah, this is like the classic what we make up like on the spot anyway. So that's cool. All right, yeah. Keep coming and have fun, and awesome. You could probably cut before that.